Hi, everyone, and welcome. My name is Lindsay Bostwick, and I'm the Director of Artistic Planning here at the Art Center at NYU Abu Dhabi. And I am thrilled to join you here at the part 2 of our Youth Career Chats, focused on looking at members of the Art Center and their career paths, where they are now, where they were, where they're going. I would really like to thank the U.S. mission to the UAE for their support of our youth engagement program, as well as to thank our lead sponsor, Mubadala, as well as all of our media partners and our sustaining sponsor, GAC. This week is extremely exciting to welcome our Art Center team member, Tiece Edwards, who has been working here as a core member of our team for the last 5 years. She will be in conversation with NYUAD students and student assistant at the Art Center, Matab Mashta, who is a freshman here studying business. Without further ado, I would like to hand it over to the two of them to start this conversation. If you have questions, please make sure to add those in the chat. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Lindsay. Hi, everyone. Okay. Hi, Tiece. How are you?
Hi, Matab. I'm well. How are you?
That's great. I'm doing well. Well, I'll just start with a little bit introduction about Tiece, but not too much spoilers because I want her to speak about her story and about her experience at the Art Center. Okay, so this is our live chat with Tiece Edwards. Tiece is a member of the Art Center, as Lindsay already mentioned. Okay, so the Art Center hosts a lot of events for students, and this event is for students to learn about careers in the art industry in general, and specifically on the Art Center at NYUAD. So a little bit about Tiece is she's the front of house manager and as well as the box office manager at the Art Center, and she's gonna tell you today about her experience at the Art Center and in general in the art industry. So should we get started?
Yes. Let's go.
Okay, so let's get to know you first. Can you tell us about your career journey and what led you to this role at the Art Center?
Yes, so it's been quite a long journey, but I've loved every minute of it. I've always been interested in performing arts from a young age. So my mum got me into dance school, choir, just a whole different variety of activities just to keep me engaged in performing arts. And then while I think I was 12, between 12 and 14, I joined a choir and I was part of the choir for Andrew Lloyd Webber and Tim Rice's production of Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat at the West End in London. And I loved it and I enjoyed it, like getting to sing on stage. I'm not a good singer, but I enjoyed being part of a choir where everyone else made me sound like I was good. But then I decided I didn't really want to be in the spotlight. Like I enjoyed seeing how it worked behind the stage and doing the production side. So I started to volunteer at local amateur drama groups in my area, and I was doing stage management, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. And then that's when I realized, okay, I want to work behind the scenes, definitely. So then when I went to university to study English literature, I at the same time kept involved and I did the drama society and I volunteered and taught drama and did some theatre productions with the visually impaired society within the area where I studied at university, and I did that throughout. Once I graduated, I got some internships working for local theatres doing stage management and kind of production assistant for a few productions. And then while I did that, I was like, okay, I'm enjoying this, but I'm curious by the music side of it now. I want to kind of step a little bit away from theatre and explore music. So then I started volunteering. It was perfect timing because we had the Olympics in London and they were doing loads of music events, loads of just live events happening around the city. So I started volunteering for the largest festival that was happening along the River Thames in tandem with the Olympics. And I started doing artist liaison. Like they just threw me, they were like, what can you do? I was like, anything? They were like, okay, work with these artists. You're going to be backstage. You're going to be working with them. Here's the rider. Here's all this information. I was like, okay. And I started doing it. And I love the adrenaline of working in events anyway, in general. So then after I started doing that, I was able to start getting work in artist liaison. So I was doing a lot of it in London for that company who also organized the London Jazz Festival, and then also other companies. And I was able to start working with large, huge artists that I wouldn't even dreamed of, like Taylor Swift, the Rolling Stones. And it was just such a great, for me, I loved it to where, excuse me, I actually quit my stable job so I could just freelance do music. And, the jobs were here and there, but I was like, no, I want to work in it. And then I got some venue work as well. So I started working in like front of house and box office for a lot of local venues at the same time. So I was exposed to music events and theatre as well, which was the dream for me. And then I moved to the UAE when I was 23. So I was quite young. And I was able to get freelance work working for the Red Fest DXB in Dubai, and then working for different companies in Dubai, doing a lot of artist liaison. And then I was able to do stage management for Mother of the Nation event that happened in Abu Dhabi. And then, so I was freelancing for a long time in the UAE, which has its challenges because of visa and insurance, it happens. And then I was fortunate enough to get the job at the Arts Centre, which here I am 5 years later working front of house and box office management. And it's great because I am still exposed to theatre, music, dance, just all the things that I thoroughly enjoy being around. So yes, that's my journey so far.
That's impressive. And now I'm envying you, like you work with all these great artists. This sounds like a dream career journey. Okay, that's nice. So I know that right now you're working on Master of Arts in Music Business right now. So would you like to tell us about this a little bit, how it relates to your career right now at the Arts Center, and possibly like your ambitions after you finish the master?
So I actually finished the master's in June. So I graduated in June this year.
Oh,
it was meant to be, I took a little bit longer to finish it just because I was doing a full-time job at the same time. And with the pandemic, everything shifted slightly. But so I did the master's in music business with Berklee College of Music online. So that was it was great. I decided to do it because, as I've probably said millions of times already, I enjoy just the idea of music. I'm a heavy music consumer. I listen to it all the time. It motivates me. And I was really intrigued to kind of learn a little bit more about how the industry works and learn a bit more about the infrastructure and hopefully be able to apply it to my job itself, just because you learn a lot about leadership and just contracts and just the way you can engage and interact with the consumer, and then also the relationship between the artist and consumer. And I see all my colleagues are also doing stuff like that. So I just really wanted to understand it from like a broader perspective. So when I come to work, I can be like, oh, I know what Lindsay does. Like, I think I understand a little bit, like just a little bit, because she does a lot. And the same with Lana and all my other colleagues. So when I finished it in June, and yeah, it was just really great. It was very insightful. I learned a lot about the industry in general. And yeah, it's just I'm still quite overwhelmed by it all. And, that I was able to kind of graduate while still working. And
that's almost impressive, especially like at that time it was, the COVID situation. So like you had to manage work, studying, and the pandemic. That's really impressive. Okay, so now that we've covered a little bit of your academic background, maybe we should like discuss your work at the Arts Center. So would you mind telling us like how has your work and approach to your work changed over time since you started and up until now in the Arts Center?
So I think when I started, and I think this is something I felt like I started the Arts Center quite young, like in my age and in my career as well, so I felt when I started compared to now, I definitely feel I've matured in a lot of ways, like my approach to work, my understanding, the way I collaborate with people. I think it's tricky because I definitely feel there's been an evolution. The Arts Center is an organization that's continuing to grow. It's some, so I feel like I've had to grow with it and evolve with it. So that's kind of how my approach has changed. I try to be versatile. So I kind of change as everything around me changes. But I don't know. I really don't know how to answer that one. I would say I feel a lot wiser now. I've definitely been exposed to a lot of different events, different requirements, just so many different circumstances. And when I first started at the Arts Center, I was quite new to that amount of responsibility. And even though I'd done artist liaison and I'd been head artist liaison and I'd led that, I think this was different. One, because it was actually a full-time job. So I was here every day, more or less, 5 days a week, sometimes 6, sometimes 7. the team know, you know, and it was just more, I had a lot more responsibility. I had a big team to lead. So I was leading, I still do, but I had the front of house team who were contractors at NYU before I got the students on board. So there was just so many different responsibilities that I probably found a little bit overwhelming, and maybe I didn't have the confidence to own it at the very beginning. And I definitely feel now I have that confidence. So it definitely changes the way I work a lot more. Like I feel like I'm more able to be like, yep, leave this to me, I'll get it done. I also think I'm more of a critical thinker now as well. So I'm able to kind of look at the long term, the bigger picture, and say, okay, let's think about how this might affect this and how, whereas at the beginning, I was still trying to find my ground, and I'd have a very short-term view. But I think definitely working here now, it's encouraged me and kind of taught me how to be a professional. Not that I'm saying I wasn't before, but I definitely feel that that's helped. And I do feel it's impacted my approach to how I deal with daily tasks, big projects, small projects, like just in general.
That's amazing. Thank you. So what would you say is like one quality or skill you learned that helped you most, or like you found most useful in the art center throughout your time trying to like get on stable ground?
One skill that I've found useful and that I really like is, and I'm still kind of learning it, is definitely leadership. Because as you know, I have to lead a team of front of house ushers, the box office team. So I definitely feel that's a skill that I value a lot, because it's not only taught me about leadership, it's also taught me about collaboration and being able to work with people and understand people, and just be able to kind of navigate that. Because I think if you can work with different personalities in different circumstances, then you can work anywhere, because that's really what it is. Teamwork makes the dream work. So I definitely feel my leadership skills is something I will forever be grateful for, just being given that opportunity to be able to lead and then learn as I'm leading as well, and work with amazing people.
Yeah, that's a good point. Leadership is really important because it also gets other skills working. So in your time at the art center, or like in your career journey, was there someone who gave you a piece of advice that you still find impressive or impactful?
Like, I feel my line manager, he definitely gives me advice every now and then, like a lot. But something that I've had more, because he's very encouraging at times, like to just say, do this, you can do it. You know, just a reassurance that sometimes I think everyone needs it. And we, you know, sometimes we doubt ourselves, which is very normal. But a piece of advice that I actually received recently, and it wasn't from anyone at work, it was actually from my aunt. But she was like, you have to have the confidence to do something, because if you don't have confidence in yourself, people will sense it, people will see it. And this is definitely something I think is applicable to everyone, especially students who are starting to reach out and look for work after they finish school, is to actually just believe in yourself and be confident enough to approach people and say, hey, I'm interested in working in this. You know, can you give me a shot? You know, and I think that advice is, it's so important, just to be able to have that confidence and believe in yourself. And I know it sounds a bit like cliche, but I definitely think that is probably the best advice.
Yeah, that's great. I'm sure every one in the audience, hopefully students are finding this helpful. Sometimes you have to fake the confidence. And now I would like to ask and see if anyone in the audience would like to ask anything to you. Let's see. Okay, so we have a question from the audience. Can you define what an artist liaison is or does?
There's superheroes. No. So for artist liaison, it's pretty much someone, it depends at what stage you go into the project. So for me, I was working artist liaison for live music events. So I would typically what would happen is I'd get called in to work maybe a week before, depending on how big the production was and how much work the other team were able to do. But I would get called in a week before, and it would start with just kind of having the artist rider, seeing what their requirements are, seeing what we have to work with, setting up the backstage area, liaising with the artist team, so like their managers, their production manager, to see what their requirements are. Do they need a production office? Also kind of planning their accommodation, so making sure that when their flights arrive, there's someone there to meet them, take them to accommodation, that the accommodation has everything that it needs. transportation to the venue, making sure they're there for sound checks, making sure they eat while they're on site as well, and often off site. Yeah, so it's just kind of being that link between the artist and the event, and making sure, basically being a parent at the event, no, but making sure that they get on stage, they're happy, everyone's happy, healthy, well, and then when they leave the stage as well, that they're able to get back and they get on that plane back to their destination. Sometimes it would include arranging tours for them as well. So while they're, especially in the UAE, it's such a fascinating place. So if people would fly here, they want to go on safari, they want to see the Burj, so just kind of arranging that. So it was a lot of liaising with different departments on behalf of the artists and their party to make sure everything was set, including liaising with stage managers, in case they had any quick changes, or just to make sure everything on stage was set, making sure towels were there, water were there, the band were ready, liaising with front of house as well to let them know, yep, we're good, everything's set backstage and we're good for you to kind of let the audience in, liaising with the press, because sometimes they would have like the meet and greets. So it was just a lot of work. And it's the definition, artist liaison, if I had to define it in like a very short sentence as opposed to my long list of job description, I would say it's just being that point of contact for the artist and the artist party when they arrive at a venue, and making sure that their whole experience is a positive one, everyone's safe, happy, the show happens, and they get back safely or to their next destination.
That's great. I love your analogy, and I'm sure like this, because it involves a lot of work on small details, can you share a challenging moment in one of the shows you worked on, or like you had to work through something challenging you could tell us about?
Yeah, I mean, there were always curveballs that would appear for an event, like you think, I like to be quite organized, and I definitely take pride in my time management. So I'd like to make sure, okay, as long as I have this dressing room set up the day before the artist comes, I'm good. I can then start pacing and working on the other tasks that I have. But then, you'd often get it on the day of, you set the dressing room up, everything looks great, and then you'd be like, the artist doesn't want that color in the dressing room, or the artist has asked for draping. And I'm like, oh, what do I have to do to get the draping? Oh, well, you need to drive around Dubai and find scaffolding so we can then put the draping. I'm like, but my car is tiny. And they say, here's a truck, drive the truck. So things that I don't know, drive the truck in Dubai. So there were definitely challenges like that where last minute things would pop up. But, you just learn to go, at the end of the day, you have to get it done. And there were many times in Artist Liaison, and I don't want to put anyone off because it's actually, I thought it was amazing, but I would sleep in the dressing rooms overnight just because I was like, I'm going to be up in the morning. So I'm just going to sleep here tonight, and then I'll get up tomorrow. And for me, it's all part of the experience. It's so rewarding, like it really is. And so that's just an example of a challenge that can pop up, just last minute changes or an artist's flight being delayed or something. But then that kind of becomes a bigger problem for everyone, not just for Artist Liaison.
Wow, that definitely needs a person to be very flexible. So what would you say is the most memorable thing at working at the Art Center?
Oh, there's so many. First of all, I really enjoy a lot of the events that we have on at the Art Center, and just being exposed to the art and the artists. That's very memorable. I definitely enjoy working with people. And I think something I'll always keep with me is the relationships I've been able to kind of form with my team, and also with the students that I have as front of house. It's been, for me, I have like a sentimental hold to it. It's just been so great. Like, just to have that team closeness is it's like a community, like a family for me. And I think that's something I really value.
That's amazing. We have a question from Sarah, and she says, I'm wondering what helps stay calm at work. So what helps you stay calm at work?
Music. And then just being able to be rational, about things. So sometimes I'll just come to my office and go, okay, I can do this. Like, I have to, and just having deadlines and knowing it has to get done. Because things can be very fast paced a lot of the time, and just saying, well, it has to get done and I'm going to make it happen. So it's really just talking to myself. So if you do see me walking around the Art Center talking to myself, just know it's all good. I'm just reassuring that I can get stuff done. But that's how I stay calm. It's.
That is great. And can you tell us a lot about like your day-to-day work at the Art Center as a front of house manager and a box office manager?
Yeah, so it's changed a little bit, obviously, due to the pandemic. We've moved a lot online, and we're slowly hoping to gravitate towards more in-person events. But it changes day by day. But typical day would be, if we have an event, I would come in. I always do like go through my emails and just kind of make sure that if I've missed anything, because I get ticket requests, I get front of house requests. So I just have to make sure I'm on top of everything. So emails are my first point. Go there, make sure I've got everything I need. And then if we do have an event, make sure that the audience have received email reminders, that they're all set. Go and check the spaces and the venues, liaise with the technical and the production team to make sure that we're all good from that side. Make sure I've spoken to, so it's a lot of like communicating with different members of the team as well. So working with the producers to make sure we're set. Then setting up the box office, and this is pre-pandemic. So then I'd set up the box office, make sure tickets are printed, making sure that then the barriers, the stanchions are set up for the event if we have reserved seating, making sure that's in place, and just being available all day for customers, because we do get a lot of emails and calls of people who want tickets. So that's pre-pandemic. Then during the pandemic, it's shifted a lot because we have online events. So it really has changed, and there's not one day that's the same actually for me. It really just depends.
Okay, so we're kind of like nearing the end of our talk, sadly, but I just want to ask you like two questions that could be helpful to students. So would you tell us, like, would you give an advice to students pursuing a career in the art industry and the art center, hopefully, and any recommendations on resources to learn more about careers in the art industry and the art center?
So my advice would be just be consistent and persistent. Like, don't be afraid to approach people and ask them for opportunities. Sometimes you will get offered a volunteer job, and I think that's a great start. I definitely, when I graduated, had this dream that I would land in a paid job straight away, and that wasn't the case. Like I did do a lot of unpaid internships, and really that experience is very valuable, so take it if you can. Networking is key, I think, for learning. Like, I think that's a great resource, actually, just being able to network, you meeting people and saying, hey, I'm really interested in this. Online, everything's online now, so look online. You see people posting about jobs, opportunities, online talks, in-person talks, attend those. If there's conferences or there's panel discussions, go along to them. You never know who you'll meet. You'll never know what opportunities you'll hear about unless you go to these events. So I think those are great resources. And as you kind of grow in your professional career, I definitely find LinkedIn a very useful tool as well, just to keep kind of connected with people. Social media is great as well. You learn a lot. Everyone is online now on social media, so that's also a great tool. But I think for me, the most important thing is just networking and just really speaking to people, and just put yourself out there. Don't be afraid. Don't doubt yourself. Always believe in yourself. Always have that confidence, and just say, I want to work in theatre. I'm really interested. Would you be able to maybe give me some experience, or tell me if you hear of anything, or connect me to the right person? People are really willing to help. It's such a nice community, and people do want to help others grow. So definitely take advantage of that.
Great. Thank you so much for the advice and resources. Sadly, we're ending. I can't ask you any more questions, but I'm going to pass this over. Yeah, tears. I'm going to pass this over to Lindsay.
Wow, that was so exciting. Tiece, I feel like we've worked together for 5 years, but I still learned so much about everything that your career history, and all the different various roles that you've had. And thanks, Matab, for the really exciting questions. So thrilled to have everyone out there listening to this conversation, and hope we see you for the next one. So thanks again so much. Have a great week.